finding like what roles needs to be automated, or sorry, outsourced, and then finding like the best people for that. So for example, for organic, like for like your at like editing, like how do you figure all that out?
We try to, over time, bring anything that's core to value creation in-house. Now, if we want to get into a new platform, for example, then I'm more open to bringing on a vendor who understands the platform well, with the clear intention that I want to learn from them to eventually bring it in-house. And so sometimes, so like Michael's right there behind, Michael was a vendor of ours for YouTube and did an awesome job. And then I said, hey, you should sell your agency and come work for me full time. And then Michael said yes. And so that's what we did. But it's really, that's not always what it is, obviously. But, you know, I had a YouTube vendor before Michael that it's like, okay, I learned from that guy. And then I started bringing kind of like a base level of YouTube in. And then Michael was so much better at it that I was like, okay, cool. Well, how do I get this guy in? And so over time, the requirements of talent go up, and what is required to bring that type of person on also goes up.
Would you rather train someone to become to become that skill, or would you rather hire someone to get to that skill?
So I think that the business has requirements, and then you want to hire for the small skill deficiency, because then it's just like how many resources are required to fill the gap between where they are and where I need them to be. And some people have no deficiencies, and they're the perfect, thing for the business. Those people tend to be more expensive.
So it's just, can you afford it or not? That's the main.
Yeah, and so like when you're starting out, you hire a lot of people that are typically underskilled, and then you have to make up for a ton of it with training. And a lot of the stuff that you're doing in the early days is not super complex. It's usually it's like, hey, this is how I post. This is how I respond to DMs. This is how we, get someone has an issue with their credit card. This is what we do. Like, it's a lot of simple stuff. As the business advances and gets bigger, then you have deeper expertise that typically becomes required.
So is that kind of like the same, like you wrote there? Is that also what you'd use as like a training process to like?
Oh, no, this is just usually how I optimize the system in general. Like if you have a team of people, it's like how do I increase throughput? It's like, all right, what is the stuff that matters most? Delete everything else. Reallocate resources towards the thing that you get the highest return on. Speed up timelines, and then if there's thing that I can automate, it further speeds it up. That's fundamentally it. And then in terms of what, who, when, it's just like that's just my mental framework when I'm talking to the team, or when we're like thinking about what activities or tasks have to get completed. I'm just saying, okay, that's the most important. That's the what. Okay, great. Who's owning this? Great, you are. All right. How many hours will this take?
So what's your framework or process for training someone in the most effective way to get the most out of them?
Well, now you're just talking about how do humans learn.
Yes, the behavior. Yes, how would you do that?
A lot of it comes down to, it depends on the role, right? So like we can't train, it's like, hey, can I teach somebody to code for 10 years? It's like, it's probably not worth it. It's probably worth just finding someone who has 10 years of coding experience. Right?
Let's say sales.
Yeah, well, sales is straightforward. Sales is like, you have to get them to practice the script. They watch automated recordings of other people closing sales. We have typically like twice a day touch points with the manager for their first 2 weeks. During the touch points, we are listening to them go through the script, and we set the expectation that we're going to interrupt them 30 to 40 times of them going through it. So that's like, if we're interrupting you 40 times, it means everything's going okay. Don't worry about it. And so while the salesman is saying the script, and we're role playing with them, and we're responding as though we're a prospect, if they say it wrong, we say stop. Say it like this, try it again, and then they do it again. We say, awesome job, do it again. Awesome job, do it again. Great, we keep going. And so it might take us, an hour to just get through the first however long, but we want to drill it. And so the only way, especially with like speaking patterns, like you drill through repetition. And so you just want to have as many feedback loops as you can as quickly as possible with them. And then we give them a half calendar once we think that they're proficient. And if they do a good job, we expand to a full calendar. If they do a bad job, we get them back down to 0. And we keep them, and then if they still can't pick it up, they're out.
So repeating this back to you is pretty much you take someone through a feedback loop, and you just want to reward or punish them as fast as possible, as soon as possible when you hire them. Okay.
And the way that we do that is like literally like head nods while they're going, like thumbs up, pause, try it again, say like this. And so a lot of it is also understanding the variables that someone kind of presents with for a sale. So I think, Jack, you're saying this about like how AI has 12 whatevers. Like for sales guys, for us, it's like we use the font of the script to indicate it basically as a tone guide. So it's like italics means this, all caps means this, bold means this, underline means this. And so that way the guys start to like learn how to read through that tone. And so, if something's, italicized, it's like, okay, slow down here. If something's in all caps, it's like, okay, speed up here. If something's, if one word is bolded, you emphasize it, right? If something's, underlined, then it's like, your voice inflects at the end, so it's a question. That makes sense?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Could you share a model of that? Like, could we share the Google Doc of a script?
I'll see what Jacob's got. I don't even have access to it. I have a guy who has a guy underneath of him who then reports to the sales team. So, yeah. Yeah, shoot.
We currently scale fast regarding the size of our business with 5 team members, and we at the moment have so many things to do, and we don't know how to prioritize. What would you say is like an efficient system for us to put in place in order to follow up with all the tasks we have with the team members? Is it OKR we need to put in place like a
notebook,
numbers?
So how do you figure out
shit,
which
I
numbers?
run school like that. It's a lot more complicated, I'm pretty sure.
How'd you know which numbers are the ones that you should be optimizing?
I mean, like, you write down the shit
like
on
number
the
one,
page,
number two,
and
number
then you
three,
think,
He doesn't mean those numbers.
first of all, you just write it down, because otherwise you'll stress yourself out thinking what's 1, what's 2. Just write it all down. And then you go... Then I tend to just think, okay, what can I get rid of? That's a nice way to get a quick boost in your spirit.
Oh, it really does. Just being like, actually, I don't think this is important.
Yeah.
That's why delete is the second. Like,
Yeah.
why do I even do this? Can I delete it? Great. It's like,
And often I like to ask someone else with that, because I'm like, is this really important? And if they're like, I don't think so, then I'm like, okay, good, like cross. Because sometimes it can be hard to make that choice on your own. And then you get the list down, and then you think, okay, what's the most important thing first? Like, what's number 1? And then what's number 2? And then what's number 3? And then you find that you generally only need to know 1, 2, 3. Because by the time you do those, the priorities change anyway, and there might be new items.
it's a huge point. I want to emphasize that. If you actually solve priorities in order of the priority, the first like if you solve the biggest bad thing, you'll oftentimes find that the number 2 and 3 on the list might actually not be as important anymore, and something else now might be what would have been number 2 and now becomes number 1. And so like reassessing, basically instead of trying to obsess on like what's number 9 versus number, it's like it doesn't fucking matter. Like you have to figure out what the main things you have to do are, do those, and then the whole list will change because new problems will emerge when you solve old ones.
So how often do you update the list? Like every time you're done with the number 1, you
Yeah,
just...
I mean that's how we do it. Like once we've like I was when I was talking about the department there, I was like, until we finish this thing, we're not doing anything else.
Okay.
Once we finish that, I was like, all right, now I have these 2 other things. Which one's now more important? Okay, this one. Because fundamentally, you just have to figure out what you need to do now. The rest of the list, is just like, okay, this is a rough order, but it doesn't matter because I'm not doing it.
Okay. So 1 at a time.
So you talk a lot about
That's like company-wide priorities, right? Like obviously, you still have to respond to support tickets and still need to advertise and do the normal stuff.
So you talk a lot about like 100 golden BPs.
Sure.
It's just doing the same thing over and over. But I guess what's your like big 3? What's the way to put this? Big 3 Hiroshima bombs. On like.
So no. So I get what you're saying. You'll have a priority. So maybe it's like, hey, we need to reduce churn, whatever. So that's the big thing. But then underneath of reducing churn, it's like, here's the 100 things that we're going to do to try and reduce churn. Now, of those 100 things, what's the most important, right? And you do the first one, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, shoot, churn just cut in half. Well, maybe these other things aren't even important. Or maybe you do the first one, doesn't matter at all. You're like, shit, that didn't work. You try the next one.
So yeah, so what I meant by that was like within that churn, like within those 100, do you usually find a commonality, like the, again, Hiroshima bombs of like, what's the most important? Or what do you see repeated?
Guess. Honestly, like you just guess.
That's it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of guesswork. Like as much as like you have the key data, you have your key data points that exist in business. But we were talking earlier about like how do you get better at stuff? It's like, well, you do a lot of shit, and then you look at the top 10% of the things you did, and you say, okay, what did these things have different than these other things? And I'll try and do more of that stuff. The hard part is figuring out what were the variables. So it's like, okay, these 10 videos I made or these 10 sales calls I did, I coughed in the beginning of 3 of these top 10. Is that important? It's like, I don't think it's important. So that's where like a little bit of, it's like, well, I coughed on some of the ones that didn't do well. So I guess it was on both sides. So no, I'm not going to look at that. I had pink socks on this day. Maybe that's right. But like, again, you get into like, I did start this one with an agenda. These ones I started with an agenda, and these ones I kind of didn't. So maybe having an agenda at the beginning of the call is a good idea. All right, next, from here on out, I'm going to just use agendas at the beginning of the call. That's the only thing I'm going to change. And then you do it. And then it works or it doesn't work, right? And you just keep going. Because there's always going to be like certain amounts of random variables that enters because life changes, like life's dynamic. And so fundamentally, I think that's how a lot of innovation happens, by accident.
So innovation is like throwing shit at the wall, so it takes this.
Kind of.
Is there, because I feel like Sam, you guys are both in the same thing, but I feel like, is there a way you figure out which kind of shit to throw at the wall?
Yeah, by throwing shit at the wall.
Yeah, but do you not like pick?
So you start to learn patterns.
Yeah, that's the quote 100. Like that's the hard part is identifying the observation. It's kind of like being quiet and listening. It's like I did a lot of shit, and it's like, okay, now I'm looking at these. Like, what were the variables? Like that's actually, in my opinion, the hard. Like you have to take action. Most people don't do anything. Okay, cool, I did action. Now I can identify the top 10. But it's looking at those and being like, what did they do? So we're like, okay. Because the thing is you're going to get a ton of false positives. So if you did everything, you're like, okay, well, the print on demand group does all these things for delivery. All of those things might not be the reason that his churn is 2%. It might be just the whole waitlist thing. I don't know. It might not be. And so that's where the unknown thing is. It's like, okay, there's 20 things that we talked about. Which ones are the ones that contribute the most to the outcome? And so that's where the deletion gets kind of interesting. Because like if you were to delete one of those items and your churn didn't change, then it means it didn't matter at all. And that's where I like deleting first. I mean, I think Sam and I both share that in terms of process. Is like, if you can keep deleting, you delete until something happens. Because then at that point you can always add it back and you know what actually drives output. Which is why Munger talks about like, okay, I'm going to start by how do I kill this business in the fewest moves possible? It's like, okay, well, if I kill the business in 3 moves, then those 3 things are probably the most important things to do.
That's the only way you can tell if something's actually necessary, is by removing it. Because otherwise you're like, I think it's doing something. Yeah. So I was trying to simplify the feed like last week, and I removed the category label from the posts. Did anyone even notice that? See? Yeah.
Someone told me it was a glitch.
Yeah, some people thought it was a glitch. It's funny, a few women that complained to me in DMs, they were all intuition experts.
Sorry.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, that's the level of like sensitivity that people need to notice this. But that showed me everything I needed to know. And I put it back because I was feeling the same way. But yeah, like killing the audio room, no one complained either. So there's the way you make a product better is by removing stuff. And if no one complains, you know it wasn't important. But then if people complain, you've got to see who they are, why they're complaining, and maybe it's still not important. But it's the only way you can actually know if something's important, is to remove it. It's easy to remove something from your to-do list because you haven't even done it yet.
It's the best.
Yeah. But I think what you're getting at, like by this Hiroshima bomb thing that you keep saying, is probably like more of a question like, what am I optimizing for? Right? That's how I think you get the big breakthroughs. Because just optimizing for something and just throwing shit at the wall, trying to get it's only going to be incremental. But if someone comes along and rethinks everything and optimizes for something totally different that turns out to be better, then that's how they'll beat you.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? So I think that's where you get the big gains from.
So it's like everybody here is like, obviously, I'm assuming everyone here is optimizing for money, right? It's like, but what's under that? So you're talking about what's under churn.
No, but what's interesting is the people that make the most money don't optimize for it.
Then what are they going for? What are you going for?
The best product, 1 billion users.
Okay. So product is the main thing.
Yeah, product and users and people using it and having an emotional relationship with it, where they say, I love it, right? Those kinds of things.
How are you truly staying stimulated towards that goal? Because this school games run thing, especially the last 5 days, was the most stimulated we've ever been to achieve a business result.
That's because there was a Cybertruck on the line.
Whose Cybertruck is out there? Is that yours? There. I saw Hani. I was like, is that your, what's
no,
that?
I rented it. Mine's back in Miami.
Right.
Oh. I was like, what's Hani? Okay, cool.
But really, though, how are you staying in alignment with the bigger goals? Like, are you just, like, always thinking of the bigger goal, or is there a weekly thing? Like, I think the tasks are determined, that gets determined by the milestone of now, right? Like, we didn't care about fulfillment. We just wanted to drive sales at first, right?
Well, it depends on the vision and, like, the long-term goal, right? So that's how you get motivated, I think, is you making progress towards it. And then it's things like hiring more smart people, like you get excited about the new feature you might be working on, like the maps or something, or this onboarding thing. So it becomes more like project based, but all of them contribute to this bigger thing. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And I think it's exciting for me. If you can make something so good, then maybe it grows on its own. Maybe you don't need to advertise. Maybe you know, like maybe all of these really interesting things happen. Mm.
So you're tracking towards making something that sells itself, that's so good that, you know, you don't have to advertise.
Well, that would be great. Yeah.
I mean, that's the goal, yeah.
But yeah, seeing things like that guy paying $50K to hold school festival in Germany with 500 people, that was pretty cool. People wanting to do that. Or like there was an Ireland meetup that happened without me. Seeing the podcast run without me. Some of the videos are getting like 12,000 views now. I'm not the guest or the interviewer. It's the ultimate YouTube channel. So like, you know, those things I really like seeing those things.
Yeah. What about most of the general population attributing the school brand to one of Hormozi's new projects? And, you know, like, are you looping yourself back in on I mean, people obviously meet you when they come here, but, and how are you reflecting on that? Like, you're now the face of school. Is that affecting your other ventures, you know? Like, how's that?
A few months ago, we had a school games winner. I think it was in April, maybe. They walked up to Sam, and they shook his hand. They asked him, "What community are you part of?"
And that was awesome for me. Like, yeah.
He was so happy about it. So I was like, "Oh, how do you feel about that?"
Because I knew they were here because they liked the product, right? So I was like, perfect. Yeah.
So then, Sam, I have to ask you then, if product is your main focus, right, that's what you're optimizing for, then what do you measure?
Yeah, that's hard with a good product. But things like, so you can see things like usage, right? Like if people use it, that's a good sign. How long they use it for, if they keep using it, right? But then, like, that's a good start, I think. But I more look at, like, what does it feel like to use? And that you can only experience by using it yourself, right? So frustration. So you don't generally know if something feels good, but you know when something feels bad. And once you remove everything that feels bad, the good's there, but it's harder to find the good. That's why you just keep removing the bad, if that makes sense. Yeah. Like the guy that invented the iPhone said the key was just identifying frustration and removing it until there was nothing left, instead of trying to make it great. That was how you made it great.
So just intuition.
Well, removing frustration to the point that a child could pick it up and was just using it. Their grandma could pick it up and was just using it without being told. Yeah. So it's a lot more subjective to get to that point. And then you look at what people say about it. If people really love it to the point where they start doing these conferences and shit and flying around the world, and that's a good sign. Yeah. But it's a lot more subjective and hard to measure than like money. But there is this good thing, and it's kind of good timing, especially with how shitty Boeing's going right now. But they used to have the mission. Their mission statement was to build the world's best aeroplanes. And I think they're the most valuable company in the world while that was their mission. And then they got a new CEO, and he changed the mission statement to maximize shareholder returns. And it bombed. And now they're fucked, like, because they're trying to maximize shareholder returns. Like, you forget that you make airplanes, right? Yeah. And when they start failing, you have a real issue.
So school shareholders shouldn't expect anything.
No, but see, but this is fascinating because that's how you get them the most. See what I mean? Like, it's still not clear. But that's how you give them the most returns. By building the best thing. Yeah. Because he's giving the Boeing shareholders, he's screwing them right now. Right? But he used to be giving them, it was a different guy, but he used to be giving them really good returns when they were making the best thing. So that's what I'm talking about with this, like what you're optimizing for. That's how you get the big gain.
And if you think about like the big, like the bombs, right? I think about like my big strategic moves is if I only were able to do, like if only one thing were true a year from now or 3 years from now, and if only that thing were true, how, like what would be all the downstream consequences of that? I think Tim Ferriss talks about his like big domino. Like how can I what's the biggest domino I can knock down that if I knock that down, it makes all the other dominoes irrelevant? And so like to take a hypothetical extreme with you guys, it's like if I were able to get every single student to get a perfect SAT score, like what would that business look like?
Probably be rich.
Well, right. So then your marketing would not be a concern. That like all of these other things would fall away because it's like if we just solve for that, then we will make a shitload of money. That'll happen for sure because if you have the best, like again, so it's like, but I think to Sam's point, you think differently because you're solving a different problem. And so the solutions, even us talking about this, is like how do I grow my school community versus how do I get people the best SAT scores? Are very different questions. And so you think about very different answers to those questions.
Do you think the latter, so how do I get people better
SAT,
would get better results?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, what do you think? If everybody who went through your thing got a 1600 or whatever the scoring they're using nowadays, like.
But what do they really want? Why do they even care about the SAT score?
College. Right. Like the higher score you get, the better college you get.
So can't you? What if you got more? What is the best college?
Like Harvard, Stanford. Like the big names.
So if you got 100% of everyone into Harvard,
you could do that.
Yeah, people would pay everything.
You make a lot of money.
Yeah, for sure.
a lot
of money.
Yeah.
Right. And the thing is like a lot of these ideals, like I mean, with Boeing, it's like we make airplanes or we make the best airplanes, but like a lot of it's an ideal that you never really achieve. It's like the best. Well, it's like technology improves, engines get better. It's like and they keep getting better. And like whether you get 100% of people into Harvard is different than whether you are actively trying every day to get 100% of people into Harvard.
You do it for the sake of itself.
Right. And that's also how you attract better people, because then they're like, I want that. I want to make the best community platform in the world and connect people. Like I want to be a part of that. I want to build the best airplanes. But no one's like, you know what I want to do today? I want to maximize shareholder value. Right? So a part of that, like long-term, like the mission stuff does. So, okay, I'll tell you a quick side note. So I told you Simon's Food came out yesterday, and we both had almost an identical experience in terms of post-sale. And so he and I both came to like, I started with the idea of like, maybe I'll start a charity. And so then I thought about that more, and then I was like, charities aren't self-sustaining. They have to, it's always about like getting other people to give you money. I was like, that kind of sucks. And I was like, well, maybe I'll do like a nonprofit and like build something that way. And then at the very end, I was like, well, no, it's like to benefit all stakeholders, it's like you need to have money to reinvest and grow shit, right? And so then it was like, oh, fuck, I just basically figured out how to have a business with a mission. So like, and so like, it's like, reinventing the wheel. But if you start from like, okay, I want to do this really, like if you want to do this amazing thing in the world, you end up deriving what a mission-based business is. Like you just rederive it from zero. And he had the exact same thing with what he's doing with Outbank, which is a for-profit business. Acquisition.com is a for-profit thing. School is a for-profit business.
So to summarize both, you're saying make the goal to be the best at that thing, and automatically everything else kind of optimizes for itself.
Kinda. Like, you have to make sure you don't run out of money. Like, so you're trying to make the best thing and deliver the best experience to your customers, right? But you have to survive to do that, right? Because if you die, you can't help anyone. So it's balancing those two things.
How do you find the upper limit for like, or even lower limit for how much you want to like optimize for money versus the best product?
It's like survival, but because you need talent, like, so that meat requires money. So you do need some kind of growth. And also for the talent to be interested, you need some kind of growth, right? So like, you need a minimum amount of growth, I think, to fund the development of the thing and to attract the caliber of talent that you need. So that's a minimum requirement for that side. But then you should be putting everything that's remaining into the longer term, like, vision of it. Do you know what I mean?
Kind of. Could you expand on that? I'm a little confused.
Well, school's not trying to really make any profit. We just pump everything back in. And so we're trying to grow, and because we need to hire people, and we need to show growth to be able to hire good people because they want to be in something that's growing. But otherwise, we're trying to make the best thing possible because we believe that'll be the best way to grow longer term, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we're not trying to like make profit right now.
But you need the profit to show that
No, we don't need profit. We just need growth.
You just need growth.
Yeah.
Okay, makes sense.
To put this in context, like if we wanted to make school profitable, it would be very easy and very profitable immediately. We just would slow down growth. And so it's like we spend money to advertise. We spend money on bringing new talent in. And so it's like we could just say like we're not going to reinvest at the same rate into the product. So that means we'd stop hiring people. And we're not going to advertise to get more people to find out about the product. And so all of that cash that would go into more developers and more marketing just becomes bottom line profit. But we just would rather just grow that much more next month. This is why long-term having a product that keeps customers is so important. Because if you keep customers, then you're willing to forego profits a day because you know that person's going to keep paying you. And so you're willing to take what they're paying you today and tomorrow and the next day to go get more customers. If that person stays for 3 months, then it's like, well, shit, I got to go get more customers again just to stay alive, to stay the same size. And so that's why, I mean, obviously, you know, Sam's coming from the software perspective. But oftentimes, like in traditional, you know, tech stuff, you keep building until you get retention. Like you don't want to scale it. You don't want to pour more water into the bucket until you know that the water that the little droplets you put in actually hold there. Because then at that point, then you can pour more in and then it does stick. But it's like you really want to have essentially a cost to acquire a permanent customer. And so right now, a lot of you guys get transactions, but those people walk out the other side really quickly. The real like wealth alchemy happens when you say, okay, I mean, if you look at the biggest companies in the world, look at like Chase, right, bank. It's like, okay, they know that once someone gets on Chase, they pretty much just stick. And so at that point, they're willing to just spend whatever it takes to get more people on because they know that whatever day they feel like they're going to have this massive nut of scale that they can milk whatever profits they want from. Obviously, Chase is a 100+ year old company, and so they do make profits too, and they know how to reinvest and whatnot. But especially when you're smaller, the growth matters if you're building something. If there's holes on the back, you're not building anything, and that's why that's why it's tough a lot of times in the beginning because you don't know how to get good. And so you do sell people in the beginning mostly to get feedback to get better, rather than selling people in the beginning in order to like make your nut. Of course, you have to survive, you got to eat, whatever. But like the amount that people expand their lifestyles relative to what they put back into making the product better is usually the discrepancy between businesses that stay for the long term.
Would you say you're still like, for acquisition.com, would you say you're still at that point, even though like you've advanced so much in business?
I don't know what you mean.
Would you still say you're like learning from each business, like how to improve, or are you just implementing more for them?
We learn lots. I learn stuff every day from all the portfolio companies. But for me, acquiring a permanent customer is I buy a business. It's permanent. And then I take capital and then I buy another one. It's permanent. And so it's like, so the equivalent chunked up a level is I could take all the distributions from all the companies and somehow expand my lifestyle to an obscene like level. Or I could take that cash and then buy another company. And then that continues to those are all permanent assets.
So thinking about that permanency is like that LTV to CAC ratio you're talking about.
Yeah, and the ideal, LTV is one that just continues to grow because no one leaves.
And the CAC stays the same. Okay.
And CAC sometimes goes up, but you also are getting more customers who are continuing to pay you. I don't know if someone's raising their hand. Oh, what's up, Dan?
Back here.
Oh, yeah, what's up, Daniel?
Yeah, so just curious because we're talking about...
Ugh, just pain.
We're talking
It's
about
enough.
making that...
What did you say?
I said it's enough.
So,
What did you hear last month? All right, what do you want?
in terms of making a great product is amazing, but then capturing those testimonials is another challenge. With Gym Launch, did you have a specific strategy on getting like the before and afters and the testimonials of like the right
Sure.
time, the right reach out method?
Yeah. So we had here, I'll pull it up. We had 7 ways that we captured them. So the first thing we did was we had customer lifecycle ads, which is basically like most of you guys record your sales, right? You record your setting calls, you record your sales calls, you record your onboarding calls. If you don't, please record them. It's automatic. It's not hard to do. You record, and then all you do is you figure out who's successful, and then you pull them on a call, have them tell you what their success was. And then all you do is you search for those people inside of your recordings, and you find the other 3 calls. And now you have a journey for each of those customers that's right there, and it's automated. So you can basically be like, oh, so you can like pull to the part of the sales call where it's like, hey, what was your, like, what are you here for? Oh, I'd like to make, I would like to find funding for my credit score or whatever, right? And then it's, at the onboarding call, they say the same thing. And then at 30 days, they're like, oh yeah, I'm struggling with this thing and this thing. And then you just show the time lapse. And it's like at day 60, like, holy shit, I just got funded or whatever it is, right? So
the whole customer journey.
Exactly. And you just do it in 60 seconds. So that's number 1. Number 2 is to do an unlock, which is having an award for some sort of big milestone. Like almost all you guys have, like you guys have your touchdown, right? You guys have maybe a perfect score, or just like maybe it's a 100-point improvement. You want it to be something, that people kind of aspire towards. And so we'd say, hey, once you hit this milestone, send a video of yourself saying that you did that thing to, marketing@gymlaunch.com. And then post that video inside of the community and then tag this person. And so when you do that, then we get the video and we get the screenshot of the post. So we have 2 kind of like versions of the testimonial. And then they get whatever the award is. Right now, you can either make like for us, we didn't even unlock anything. We just gave them a sword. Yeah, so it's Gym Lords. That was like our whole thing. And so the thing is that then when you do have your events, which I recommend you do, when people come in person to get the sword, everybody lines up on stage, and then you get another testimonial because they're all together, all collecting their swords, which means something. I also would have the unlock. You guys already have that feature inside of school. Like if you have a bonus course or something, it's just like, just send me a video about how great you're doing, and we will unlock this for you. Really simple. I had my team at the end of every week search their DMs for keywords and search the group for keywords. So it'd be like sales, leads, cash, closed, whatever the keywords list of wins are. Now school makes it easy because it has a wins column, but back in my day, we had to search for all those terms, and then we would screenshot all the new posts and then upload those into a folder that had happened. And then when we would send them the sword in the mail, we would have them do an unboxing video, and they would send that to us too. So basically, every one of those success stories gave us a post, which we screenshotted. We would be able to get the customer journey. We'd be able to do the them sending an unboxing video. We'd have the video itself that they made the post about, and we'd have them on stage receiving it as well. And so we were able to get 5 testimonials from every single person by doing it that way. And then obviously the bonus unlock is just extra. Does that help?
Heavy duty.
Yeah, it's like we're trying to win.
Systems for collecting the video, they just emailed the video?
Yeah, we just had them email at whatever, xyz.com.
Wow.
Would you tell the gyms that they need to get their clients to take before photos? Like, would they be very specific about that? Or do you just assume people have them?
No. Assume no. Ed's right here. Ed worked with me on Gym Launch. They just assume they have none of that. And so we built it into the process. So we ran weight loss challenges or taught them how to run weight loss challenges. And so part of the weigh-in process, which is when you would do someone's nutrition plan, was that you'd weigh them in, you take a picture. And so when they do the weigh out, you weigh them out, you take a picture. So basically manufacture testimonials for everybody.
So that's in the onboarding process then, the before photo?
Yeah, totally. 100%. Yeah, in-person businesses, it's hard to not have testimonials. Like, you just have to really suck. No, you do.
I have a question regarding free trial, right? So how would you make sure that the maximum amount of people that take the free trial end up converting at the end?
So, a lot of it's going to be the onboarding. Honestly, everything that we talked about with onboarding earlier, like that's going to be the main thing. And like for school, we have like inside of the activation sequence that I wrote, which I think should be going out in the next couple of weeks. I looked at all the top posts inside the community. And so it's like, what are all the obstacles that someone presents with? And so someone's going to say they don't have time. So it's like, okay, here's a long form post about time. Someone's going to say, I don't have $99 a month. So it's like, hey, here's 6 things you can immediately cut to save $300 a month. Okay, great. So it's like, I'm going to buy them time. I'm going to buy them money. I'm going to buy them, like, what are all the reasons someone cancels? It's kind of like removing the bad stuff, like Sam was saying. It's like, what are all the friction points? And let's just remove all of them one at a time, and then have that be the onboarding. So the only thing that's left is the good stuff. Keb?
You just say that to grow, you need to fix the holes, right? But my question is, how do you find the holes? Because sometimes it's...
Totally. I think you ask customers and why they're canceling, why they're leaving, and part of that's like the listening and observation part. Like, unfortunately, there's a combination of one is people lie because they don't want to hurt your feelings. The other thing is a lot of times people don't know. So people have an easier time saying something's wrong than saying what is wrong. And so I learned this from Stephen King because I read his book on writing when I was writing my books. And so he talked about part of his editing process being like he gives his books to 4 or 5 people that are his kind of like his test readers. And he says, if everybody circles like one area or has like some problem,